Welcome back to What the Flick. I'm Matt, that's Christy, that's Alonso. There are a lot of wrestlers trying to make it in Hollywood. Some of them somewhat successfully. Recently, John Cena, or not recently, this week, John Cena is starring in Blockers, which opens this Friday. And we've all seen the movie. We'll have a review up on YouTube, but he's kind of funny in this.
He's kind of funny in everything, and it was a big surprise in the beginning with like Trainwreck and with Sisters, and part of the charm of it is that he is playing somebody who is so antithetical to your expectations of him, right? He's sweet or sensitive, or he's got like a really dry, low-key persona,
he'd done that movie,
and
The
that's
Marine.
what works.
He did that. He did The Marine.
And 12 rounds. Which is the more
that's right. 12 rounds.
The more kind of traditional path you expect from a wrestler, like big action star.
But when they subvert your expectations, like that's when it's really cool. And, it would be easy to underestimate somebody like that based on what he looks like. And The Rock is like the prime example of that.
Sure.
Don't call him The Rock anymore. He's not even The Rock anymore.
Dwayne Johnson.
And I actually forget that he used to be a wrestler, because he is an actor now, and more than just like a big blockbuster star. He is an actor. And I also like, in the same vein, I like Dave Bautista in the same way, because he's not playing somebody big and mean. He's like kind of sweet and kind of understated, and it's not what you expect.
I don't know, but Bautista, I think, has found this sort of interesting place with the Guardians movies where he is playing somebody big and mean, but at the same time he's like sort of naive and funny and unaware of how things work, and that's what the joke is. And so I think the key for these three guys is that, yeah, they have a commanding physical presence, but they have a sense of humor and know how to land a joke.
Right. Well, but so they're smarter than they look too, if they can do that.
But also with those three, look, there's a lot of other, especially you look back in the 80s and 90s where you've got guys like Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper does a couple of movies, Andre the Giant.
Hell Comes to Frogtown.
That's one of the movies I'm talking about.
An actual movie that has Roddy Piper.
Roddy Piper's two big movies are They Live, which is, They Live is terrific, and then They Live comes off like a Merchant Ivory epic compared to Hell Comes to Frogtown. Like calling it a B movie would be generous. And Hulk Hogan waltzes his way through some movies, and they're really dumb. His probably the best movie he ever did was Rocky III. Like he's got he actually does something interesting.
I sat through all of Santa with Muscles during my Christmas research.
Right,
and just putting that out there.
And you've got Andre the Giant, who arguably makes one of the best wrestler appearances in any movie in Princess Bride.
He's lovely in that. Yes.
Jesse Ventura is at least fine in Predator.
Right.
He kind of riffs on himself when he's in Running Man, and then like he gets a cameo basically in Demolition Man. But these three that we're talking about that are working now, like Dave Bautista, John Cena, The Rock, can act. Like they can at least within a certain range, right? They can act, and I think that there's a level of at least wrestler within the last 15 years that have really, over and above the physicality, really have embraced and really worked on the skill of selling the character that they play in the ring, and that's a character. And so you see The Rock will do movies that require a little bit more seriousness, and he can hold it. Now, The Rock is clearly more fun when he's making fun of himself, doing, I think the first sign of The Rock being up for some really good comedy is when he's in the otherwise terrible Be Cool.
Yeah.
And he's clearly having fun with himself. But you look back on what he does in Jumanji, and you kind of buy that there's this 14-year-old kid trapped inside him.
Yeah, and there are times when his sense of humor doesn't always work. I think Journey to the Center of the Earth 2 or whatever that one was a little like, okay, calm down, Dwayne.
How many eyebrows can we raise?
Don't overdo your skill set. But I think for the most part, he knows the sweet spot of where his shtick is effective and can work. And I think he's been a little less successful in sort of straight up dramatic stuff like Snitch or whatever. I think he's more effective in the Fast and the Furious movies where there's a little bit of tongue in cheek happening.
Right. And he's okay in Walking Tall, but he can at least do those serious roles. But where he's doing these roles, his action movies, he's got enough charisma that you're willing to kind of go with it. Similar to where,
absolutely.
And I think if you're talking about physical actors that get roles, Schwarzenegger goes a long way just on screen presence, even though at least in his heyday, his acting wasn't great. I think The Rock is a better actor.
Yeah.
I'm really intrigued by Bautista. I think that just based on what you see out of him in
the
Blade
Guardians
Runner.
movie. Oh, and Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, right? Like Guardians, he's totally having fun with himself, right? Like he really embraces this dingbat Drax character. Drax is dumb as a box of hammers, but there's a seriousness and like almost a dignity to him in
no, he has genuine gravity.
He has a code, gravitas. He does, drink.
But you see that character has a, like, he's hiding something and there's a world weariness in Blade Runner that it's certainly the most impressive thing I think we've seen him do.
Sure. So someone like that though, like, should they try to stray outside of this, little perimeter of roles that are kind of, fit their strengths and toy with our expectations? Like if Dave Bautista did try to do like a serious romance or a rom-com, like should they try to meander outside?
I think it's a case-by-case basis, and I think you can maybe find the right role that fits into the stuff. And I'm sure probably these guys work with coaches and are constantly sort of developing that part of themselves. I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody's offering them the Imitation Game, but you never know. Like that, they could really surprise you. And maybe at some point, being franchise Viagra isn't going to be enough for Dwayne Johnson, and he's going to want that Oscar, and he's going to have to figure out what that's going to look like. So I don't know. I want to give a quick shout out to George the Animal Steele for his portrayal of another pro wrestler turned movie star, Tor Johnson, in Ed Wood.
Oh, right. Right.
Yeah. And Matt, as you point out, though, they do have to have a certain set of skills as far as acting and be able to hit their marks and say their lines from the wrestling world.
They're pretty much coming from Broadway in a way.
Well, but speaking of that,
and so
one of the ones that I think is interesting as we're talking about that is Kevin Nash, right? Kevin Nash is this big dude and he's played a lot of heavies, but he shows up in the adaptation of Rock of Ages, and he's in the.
I don't know who that is.
I don't either.
He's one of the guys in the Magic Mike movies. He's like the big. He's one of the strippers, and he's got some good comic timing, and he shows up, and he's kind of fun. I'm going to give a shout out to the Barbarian brothers.
Oh God!
Right,
yes,
David and Peter Paul, who did the movie Barbarians, and they show up briefly in DC Cab.
So does not ring a bell.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a bunch of those guys that try and make it.
Didn't Triple H do a movie?
Triple H is in the first X-Men movie. He's Sabretooth in the first X-Men movie. You see Dave Goldberg try to make a go out of it.
Santa's Sleigh. Macho Man Randy Savage.
He did movies, right?
I don't.
One or two.
What was that?
Spider-Man. He's a Spider-Man.
Oh, right. Really? Well, so Macho Man shows up, right, okay. But when you show up
as yourself.
Right, if you basically show up as Bonesaw McGraw, no one stees with Bonesaw.
I like this new Venn diagram you found for Alonso. It's like wrestlers and Christmas movies, right there in the middle.
I didn't tell them to make those movies. That's when they entered into my gym.
You know so much.
Yeah, I for one want to see, I'm curious to see what directors can pull out of Dave Bautista, because I think that based on what we saw with Villeneuve, I'm really intrigued by that. So
and also, I mean, let's not forget, I think we forget how good at drama comedic actors can be. When like Robin Williams, like there's a whole history of them. So certainly, if Cena and Dwayne Johnson can be funny, maybe they can act.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a recent article that kind of calls out Hollywood's gay double standard on how it's okay for women to come out of the closet, but a lot of young actors don't feel like they can. So we're going to discuss that when we come back from these messages. Fortunately, we have Alonso here to walk us through
I have nothing to say.
Please gay-splain.
Yes, exactly. We'll be back in just a moment.